Let's move on to our version of TED Talks. Now, TED Talks started back in 1984, just south of here down in Monterey was the first TED Talks gathering. TED is an acronym for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. The very first TED Talk meeting, they debuted an earlier version of the compact disc player. They debuted an early version of an ebook at the first TED Talk. They also debuted some of the early cutting-edge 3D graphics that became part of Pixar and the first Toy Story movie. So there's some of the neat things that came out of the very first TED Talk. In 2006, YouTube made TED Talks a worldwide phenomenon. They posted just 6 talks for the first time, and within days back in '96, they had millions of views. Today, TED Talks have over 1 billion views online. Their mission at TED is to spread ideas that deserve to be spread and to tell stories that deserve to be told. We thought that would be a great ethos for our program as well around Connect. And so we've come up with SAM Talks. We call them SAM Talks, shortened for Securities America. And we have 3 SAM Talks today. First up, our first speaker is Chad Parmenter of Mirus Planning in Kirkland, Washington. Chad founded Mirus Planning back in 2009. He's been practicing as a financial planner since 1992. He's married with 2 young sons, I believe they're here in the audience today, and he cherishes the time he spends with them, especially spending time snowboarding with them. Please welcome our first SAM Talk, Chad Parmenter.
Are you guys in the audience, by the way? Where are you? I'm looking for my kids. Thanks, everybody. Nice to be here. Nice to finally be doing this talk, by the way, too. I've been thinking about it for a couple of weeks, actually a couple months. I'm going to focus my attention on personal productivity issues that I've been focusing my attention and energy on this year. And it actually has a lot to do, the big why as to why I'm doing that is the idea of trying to insulate against distractions and focus in on our one priority for 2014. And it stems actually from a vacation last summer that I had with my kids and my wife. Unfortunately, I was in a position where I was spinning sort of out of control. At least I felt that way. So I'm going to get a little naked with you here, by the way. Not really naked, but naked in terms of vulnerability. I felt completely out of control while I was on that vacation. It was the first time in 22 years that I was not able to relax, not able to concentrate, and not able to just enjoy myself. And I knew there was something wrong, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I knew it wasn't okay for me, and I was going to start to need to make some decisions and do some things differently. What's interesting is I'm not the only person in our industry that's facing this conundrum. In half advisors that feel out of control, this is from a financial advisor article in April, actually. Karen DeMasters cites a couple FPA studies about how advisors are feeling right now about their practices. And I don't know if this is since the financial crisis or what exactly this is that's spurring this on, but there's some interesting statistics here. 53% of advisors feel like they're not in control of their time. 49% think they're not in control of their business. Only 13% of advisors feel like they're completely in control of their time. And only 10% feel like they're completely in control of their business. What's interesting, I think, about our business is that we have so much stuff coming at us all the time. It's constantly moving faster and faster and changing faster and faster. The strengths of being an independent financial advisor are open architecture, many choices, all sorts of things to consider. Those same choices create an inherent challenge in terms of what you choose to do. I became real with myself last fall when I got home from my vacation and recognized maybe I needed to be a little bit more selective in terms of what I do with my day, with my year, with everything else that I have going on in my world. So I needed to change and create sort of a filter, if you will. I'm the guy that comes to the national conference, and I come back to my assistant, Tina, drunk with enthusiasm about 15 to 20 things that we're going to need to implement this week. I don't know if there are any of you in the audience that do the same thing, but that's what I've been guilty of doing for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden, I was getting to a point where I was getting stretched too thin. I was trying to do too much, and it just wasn't working. So I decided I need to become more selective. This is my mantra for 2014 and going on from there. This is from The Behavior Gap. If you haven't read this book, it's a fantastic read for how to work with your clients. and also, frankly, how to work with yourself. In this book, I just want to point out that the way that I'm looking at this is what I'm using for my filter for everything that comes at me. So I have two issues: the things that come at me and how I react to them, and then the things that I'm choosing to do to be proactive. This is my mantra for the things that come at me. And I judge it by these two issues. Does it matter? Is it something that I can control? If it matters and it's something that I can control and it fits within that overlap, if you will, I will actually consider doing it. If it's not in that matter category or if it's not in that control category, I just sort of set it aside. In the past, I was just doing everything. And this has been an incredibly good filter for me to choose how to decide what I'm going to do when I get an email or when I'm asked to come to another meeting about rising interest rates. Well, if it's the third or fourth meeting, maybe it's not something that matters anymore, right? We need to be more selective. I certainly did. In addition, I wanted to create a new strategy that I could use that would enable me to choose better about what I'm doing proactively. And I luckily fell into reading a book called The One Thing. I don't know if any of you have ever read this book. If you haven't, highly encourage it. It's probably the best read I've had in the last 10 years. It's all about personal productivity and doing things very outside the box. And this has actually served as my guide, this book, for what I've been doing in 2014. I came back to my assistant, Tina, who I've worked with for 10 years, and I told her about this book. I found it, I think, in October. I started reading it in November, and I kept coming back to the office telling her about all these great ideas that I was coming up with. And of course, what did Tina do? She gave me the look. My wife sometimes gives me that look too, but she gave me the look. Again, another idea? What are you talking about? And I just looked at her and I said, I know, I've got some credibility issues here, but just give me a break on this. The idea here is that we're trying to focus, not to be scattered. My issue has been I've been scattered. We want to focus. Let's take a look at it. So we had an annual planning meeting in December, and it was really kind of a cool thing that we did. We asked ourselves, this is the whole baseline of the book is the idea that not everything we do matters equally. Kind of the Pareto principle. But they take the Pareto principle, which, remember, 80% of our results are typically derived from 20% of our activities. They put it on steroids, in my opinion. They suggest that we ask ourselves this focusing question. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? The answers and the results are specific, things you can do, and create a halo effect. Sign me up. I'm trying to figure out how to stop doing so many things. I'm trying to focus. I love this idea, and I brought it to my assistant when we were doing our annual planning meeting, and we started listing out a lot of different things that we can do in our practice. We actually listed out about 120 items that our practice could choose to do. That's the things like participate with social media, for example, or doing seminars, or buying a new financial planning software package. We listed everything out. Then I took my behavior gap scenario of, does it matter? Is it something that I can control? And we eliminated a bunch of those items. I mean, that list must have been 120 long, and we probably narrowed it down to 20. So we went from a could-do list to a should-do list. Groundbreaking for me. I'm like, this is fantastic because it's overwhelming having a list of 120 things, but 20 was okay. I could do it. Then we took the next step, and we looked at my practice, and we said, okay, we've been doing this for 22 years. We've got a mature practice, selectively growing. We might add one new client a month. We're not trying to be the biggest firm in Seattle. We're trying to be the best, but we're not trying to be the biggest. And so we're selectively growing, doing it at our own pace. And so we took all that information in, and we kind of looked at our 20 lists and our 20 items in our should-do list and decided to prioritize. And we came up with a theme for 2014. And our theme for 2014, our one thing, was to deepen our current relationships. That was the one thing that we believed would truly move the dial, that would make everything else either easier or unnecessary, and something that we could control. I believe that we are in a relationship business that happens to deal with financial matters. The health of our business is directly correlated with the health of our relationships. And this was one of those things that I thought, okay, this is great. I can do this. I can proactively and personally start communicating more with our clients and our professional relationships. And that's what I was going to do, and that's what we set out to do, overdoing it, beginning in January of this year. In the one thing, they talk about the idea of, in the book, and once you figure out your one thing, they talk about the idea of focus time. Making sure that every day, and this is going to sound crazy, you spend 4 hours of your day on that one thing, every day. And my first initial reaction, yours is probably as well, was how am I going to possibly spend 4 hours on this one item? How am I going to get everything else in the day done? Well, what's interesting is the one thing that I chose actually has made things easier and unnecessary. So it's actually freed up a tremendous amount of time. But needless to say, we chose to do our one thing in the morning. And that's when my personal rhythm is good, and that's when I tend to have the most energy and I'm ready to go. And so we've kind of decided that from 9 to 2 is sort of our window of opportunity where we spend our most prevalent time on our relationship building. That's what we've been doing. We created this concept of a focus bunker. So not only are we spending our time on this issue, but we have insulated ourselves from all the distractions we used to have. We've let everybody in our office know, I share space with some CPAs, that this is focus time. Do not interrupt. Unless the building's on fire, do not come into my office. In addition, we have insulated our bunker by frosting my interior windows. I used to have these windows where everybody would go walking by, stopping, saying hello, doing all sorts of different things, and it was a terrible distraction. We frosted out those windows. I truly do feel like it's a bunker. I've got provisions in my desk with food and water and nuts and everything else. I don't go out of my office, frankly, until I need to go to the bathroom, or maybe I'm going to see a client someplace else. But this has made a big difference. And since this year, probably by mid-February, I had contacted every single one of our clients and professional relationships at least once proactively. And we've scheduled tons of meetings, and I'm feeling more in control. I'm not scattered as much. I'm doing the right things, as this slide says. Success is about doing the right things, not about doing everything right. My old type A personality, which was do more, do more, do more, do more, work harder, work harder, work harder, worked until it didn't. Now I'm deciding to work smarter, and it's really making a big difference. And you know what the best difference is spending time with my family. I actually have energy to do that again. It's a big deal to me. Life is a question. How we choose to live it is our answer. I don't know what your priorities are, and I'm not trying to tell you what your priorities are, but what I found was our business was kind of becoming a distraction to what my priorities are. And we all have a choice in our business. We're not forced to do all the things that get thrown at us all the time. We're not forced to be drunk with enthusiasm when we hear the next newest idea. I'd suggest that you all consider maybe a new mental approach of how you deal with incoming information, incoming data, stuff that comes at you every day because we're getting bombarded by it, and selectively do things. Work from a should-do list instead of a could-do list. It makes things a lot easier. It provides limits to what you decide to do. And I truly believe that if you do this type of thing, if you adjust how you operate, you will feel more in control, more energized, and more able to do the things that matter most and have the energy for it. Thank you very much.
You nailed it.
Thanks.
Nailed it.